Hello, welcome to Online Seller UK podcast. My name is Prabhat. I'm a founder of Online Seller UK, Amazon specialist agency based in the UK. So we are doing series of Amazon advertising podcast, and today I've got Rael with me, a co-founder of London-based Amazon startup called Nozzle, and Rael and I will be talking about keyword-based maths best practices. So just a quick bit of intro. Nozzle combines the brand's retail data sets with the data sets they have with unique with Amazon advertising strategies. Rael and team have been managing some of the world's largest brands. Today, it will be good to hear from Rael's experience with how to do better with Amazon advertising. So there's a bit of a long introduction. So, Rael, if you could talk about yourself very briefly, what you've been up to these days, that'll be good.
Yeah, that's. Thank you very much for having me, Prabhat. My name's Rael. I co-founded Nozzle, we're very much focused on how to understand, take a holistic view of Amazon, right? And so let's take a look at your retail data sets, your transaction data. What are your big goals on Amazon, and then how does that feed through all the way to the PPC side of what you're doing, or the programmatic display side of what you're doing. And so we work with large agencies, we work with very large brands across all different sectors, all the way through to, I guess, people just starting out on Amazon on the private label side. So we do that whole journey. I mean, it's been really interesting for us. I was talking to you before the podcast, Prabhat, on some of the issues we've been dealing with our customers. Everything from, in the good problems to have category around, I can't keep up, right? I keep selling out, sort of thing, to people who couldn't get their inventory into Amazon's warehouses, to very large clients who weren't really taking Amazon very seriously. It was kind of a rounding error in their financials, but now are very much forced to think about Amazon very seriously. And so, I guess the learnings in the last, 6 months or so have been tremendous, sort of all around, both for us as a company, but also for our customers.
No, you rightly said it's not only one thing with Amazon, and there is different areas that affects the business as a whole, and in all these areas are important, like you said. So we're going to talk about keyword maths types, right, today, and the best practices within that. So let's start. What sort of types of keywords are there in terms of with Amazon advertising?
Excuse the pun. Broadly speaking, you'll get a broad keyword match type. You'll get a phrase. You'll get an exact if you're targeting keywords. But of course, you can also target products on Amazon, so individual ASINs or product categories, or indeed other brands. And then there's this idea, I guess, of negative targeting, which we can cover a little bit later on. So that's pretty much the difference. I can talk through, I guess, an example of what each of them kind of means. So you've got this. Let's take vegan protein, I guess, is your keyword. If you're targeting, let's say, broad with vegan protein, your keyword will appear when a customer search term contains all of the broad keyword terms. So soya vegan protein or protein for vegan, it will both appear there, and therefore the order of the terms is not important. And that's obviously, like the name says, it's kind of casting a very wide net of what you want to be testing for ultimately. The next one is phrase match. So it's quite similar to broad. So let's keep it the same example about vegan protein. And so phrase matches will show when a customer search term contains your keywords, but it has to be in the right order. So let's take vegan protein. So soya vegan protein will show up in a phrase, even though it's got soya before, because it still has vegan protein in the right order. Or vegan protein for women, for instance, would also show in phrase. And so the main difference, I guess, between broad and phrase is the order is not important for broad, and the order is important for phrase. Exact match is something where it literally has to be in the right order, and only those terms that you're putting in there. So vegan protein, it will include, let's say, plurals, and very tiny sort of variations like that. But otherwise, it has to be just vegan protein or vegan proteins that include that. And so, using these tools, it helps you determine a bunch of things around, where you want to put your money when running a campaign. Sure. And for us, the match type question is actually a super interesting one. Inevitably, match type is tied to your campaign structure and your bidding strategy. Sure. You can't sort of talk about it in isolation, but in our view, it's a very sort of underrated area, unexplored area of the PPC strategy. I mean, people typically very much focus, and rightly, I guess, on your bidding strategy. Under what circumstances am I bidding £2 or £3 versus £3.05? Or the campaign structure is, of course, super important, and we can briefly touch on that. But ultimately, for us, what we've found with our sort of internal testing is controlling your budget on a match type level is actually, in a lot of cases, more important when comparing it to whether I'm bidding $2 or $2.05. Yeah. And let's just take a bit of a step back, I guess, which is with these match types, we sort of categorize them into two camps: research campaigns and then performance campaigns. Sure. And so within the research bucket, you'll have, let's say, your auto campaigns and your broad and phrase campaigns. And the idea here is of course to discover new terms, right? That you want to be focused on. And so these are in the research bucket. Once you've found the terms that work, you ultimately would put them into exact match campaigns. And so that is what we call performance campaigns. And that's when you're sort of tightly controlling the budget. Sure. And why this is really important is, if I'm very, let's say, ACOS focused or ROAS focused now, Amazon's, introduced ROAS as a front and center in Seller Central, at least. So if you're very ACOS focused, then, spending a whole bunch of money on these research match types is not going to yield the best results, right? No. And so spending too much money on research, so broad, auto, phrase, is really going to compromise your campaign goals. Whereas focusing a lot of your budget on exact match keywords, which are known to work, that's going to typically focus on your most profitable terms and therefore drive that ACOS down and help you hit that target. So thinking about, if I'm at the beginning of my journey, I'm launching a product, then sure, right? I mean, you're going to have to spend quite a bit on research campaigns, so order, broad, and phrase, in order to uncover the terms, in order to put them into exacts. But if your campaign has been running for a long time, and you're still spending, 60, 70% of your budget on auto, broad, or phrase, that's probably not the right thing to do, right? You're probably going to be really tough to hit your ACOS target there. So actually thinking about what is my budget allocation for each of these match types is really, really important. And you really want to tie that to your goals when you're first setting up a campaign. What is it that I want to achieve? If I'm doing a product launch, that entails, a certain budget distribution across all these match types, which is quite different from, I'm very ACOS focused, and therefore, I need to hit a, whatever it is, 15% ACOS. That's going to entail a very different budget allocation. And these things are dynamic, right? Just because I've allocated, 30% of my budget to broad today doesn't mean that's not going to change in 2 weeks' time or a month's time. So it's actually a very dynamic process around budget allocation across match types, depending on your goals, how they change through time, and the performance. So it's a super important topic that I think, generally people should pay much more attention to, rather than fussing over $3 versus $3.02 in a bid.
Yeah. And that's interesting. Bidding is, again, like you've explained with the match types, and that's very clear. Also, you've rightly touched base on the bidding. So
I think, one thing I haven't explained there, Prabhat, is how the bidding is different, I guess, between, let's say, broad versus exact. So I think it's quite important for people to understand, if they don't already, around how that works. So for instance, keeping with, let's say, vegan protein, if I'm in a broad match campaign and I'm bidding $1 or £1, That can apply to a whole range of search terms, right?
Sure.
Anything that qualifies as broad. So it could be vegan protein powder or vegan protein powder vanilla or, vegan protein drink. There's a whole range of that. So if I'm bidding $1 that's applicable to, 100 different terms,
yeah.
It's a very sort of rough way of doing things. It's good because you're not sure of things in the beginning. And so you're trying to cast a wide net. But ultimately, for instance, let's say, it's vegan protein and it's vegan protein shake is the one that lands up converting in terms of the search term.
Yeah.
If you're still bidding $1 on that, it's not the right, in all likelihood, it's not the right price to be paying. Mm-hmm. Right? Because that $1 is kind of a catch-all for a whole bunch of different ones. And so that's why you want to migrate it into exact match. And so you can pay the right price for the right term or keyword. And that's really the difference between, the broad and the and exact in this case of why you want to be migrating these terms is to pay the right term, isolate that term in exact match and pay the right price for it.
Yeah, and do you suggest that we review them and adjust the bids on a weekly basis, or what do you suggest?
Yeah, so a lot of this comes down to time constraints, right? I mean, we know what it's like to, you're really going to sort of, migrate 1,000 terms and, that kind of thing. And so, yes, there's of course software that can do this automatically, and clearly that's going to help. But let's assume you're not using software that, Seller Central or something won't do that. It really depends on, we would say you'd need a statistically significant data in order to make a decision. So let's say you need, I don't know, 30 clicks or something to find out whether something's working or not. How long does it take for you to get 30 clicks, right? I mean, it depends on and that's related to your budget. If you've got a very small budget, it can take a long time. If you've got a large budget, you can do it in a day or less than a day. And so the criteria, number one, is statistically significant. And criteria number two is, of course, people's behavior changes over time as well. So if you leave it too long, there could be people's behavior during the day can change, right? Most of your sales might happen weekday versus weekend or whatever it is. And so there's those sort of changes. So I think it's case by case. The main thing I would say is that, there's definitely a phenomenon of over optimizing. And yes, we build software and technically we can, adjust bids every hour if we wanted to. But a lot of the times you need to let your strategies and your bids breathe. And you need time to let them figure out whether it's working or not. And so I know I haven't answered the question, say like it is every 2 weeks kind of thing, but it does depend. But one of the most important things is you need a statistically significant signal. And that comes from the data to find out whether something's working or not, and whether it's migrate or negate or whatever it is.
So I think at that point, the system like yours would be very significantly helpful in some ways to give us enough data or maybe a time frame, or would your system prompt us to change bids and things like that? Or?
I mean, for us, you can calibrate. Our system would calibrate it however you like, meaning we've got customers which are much more sort of set and forget sort of customers, because they want to be focused on other areas of their business. They need to be sorting out right now, obviously inventory and supply chain issues are kind of front of mind. And so they want to be spending a lot of time sorting those things out. And so they will set and forget on the PPC side. But of course we've got customers that are exact opposites, and they want, they can say, do everything automatically up until this particular threshold. If you're going to increase the price, let's say more than 10%, or you're going to migrate more than 10 terms, or whatever it may be, then I need to give permission for that. So, we're sort of flexible on how you want to calibrate that.
All right. Yeah, makes sense. So the next thing I want to talk about is negative keywords. Now, should we actually be using negative keywords?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that might sound like a bit of a convoluted example, and possibly I can share sort of a diagram of this. And I think it might be better as a visual to understand what I mean here. But a negative simply means that you allow you to specifically select a search term which your ads won't run against that specific term in a campaign ad group or whatever it may be. So and so why this is important is if you are migrating a term, let's say, into exact match, you also don't want it to appear in, broad or auto. And so therefore, you want to be, using negative exact in broad and negative phrase in auto to just make sure that it will only appear in exact match. And so when we say isolating a search term, once you know that it's working and you migrate it to exact match, the only way to truly isolate it is to use the negative targeting rules to make sure it only appears in exact match. Otherwise, you, in a way, undermining that strategy. So, I mean, let's take that example about vegan protein. Let's say it's in it's a converting order campaign, and this is working really well for you. Right now, it's what, as I said, it's what we would call a research campaign. And so, what you want to be doing is firstly migrating it to broad, actually, because you want to find, let's say, variations of vegan protein that also might work for you that you don't know about. And so I want to find the variations of that. Secondly, I also want to migrate it to exact because I know it's working, right? I want that exact term as well. And therefore it lands up in exact. But now you've got a problem because it's both in broad and exact. So how is it that I just want to configure broad to only focus on the variations of vegan protein and not vegan protein itself, because that's an exact match. And the way I do that is to negative exact in broad as well. So broad is going to have vegan protein twice. Broad is going to have vegan protein, but it's also going to have negative exact vegan protein. And therefore what broad is doing is only focus on the variations of vegan protein, right?
Understood.
And the last step of that is to negative phrase in auto as well, because we don't want that appearing in auto. So effectively what is done, and I said I'll provide a visual, so it's I think a lot easier to understand that. But what we've done now is vegan protein is an exact match, which is great because we know it works. We want to control the bids and pay the right price, and that's fantastic. But also what we've done is that we've set it up in broad in such a way to only find variations of vegan protein, because there might be a whole bunch of related terms I don't yet know about.
I think that explains a lot clearer on how to use negative. So I think we've come towards the end of this discussion. I think you've given us so much information on about this particular subject. I think it's important for anybody who's doing any testing, or even if you're new, it's good to start learning all these strategies so you get the best out of Amazon advertising. So
for sure, there's tons of resources out there. It's just a lot of it is how you want to, what's important, how you want to spend your time. The PPC stuff, of course, is super important, but there's no point. There's no amount of PPC can fix a bad listing, or if you're running out of inventory, there's no point in running PPC, right? So it's just a question of priorities.
Yeah, of course. So I'd just like to thank you for your time today, Rael. So for explaining that too. So if somebody is to get in touch with you, where is the best place to find you, Rael?
It's email, our website, or LinkedIn. So rael.cline@nozzle.ai, rael.cline @nozzle.ai, or just look me up on LinkedIn. Those are probably the two best ways.
Okay, cool. I'll speak to you soon. Perhaps we can book another call and then take another topic sometime in a couple of months' time. All right.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much. All the best. Bye for now.
Bye. Cheers.